Hi, this is Brent with Theoretically Practical, and today's weekly one-shot is the Air Tool Arsenal, because if it doesn't alliterate, what's the point? Let's talk about, these are my current collection of air tools. Some are great, some are not so great, and I kind of want to talk about that a little bit, because we just did the air compressor and it's been on my mind. So, let's talk about the not so great first. So everybody probably starts out with these. These come from Harbor Freight. For the price, you cannot go wrong, but these are, I call it a tool rental, right? You don't own these tools when you buy them from Harbor Freight. You will have the use of them for, in a home shop like mine, a year or two or maybe 3, but then, things loosen up, they start to fall apart. This one doesn't work at all. That's why it doesn't have an air connector in it. This one works, but it has no power, and I can tell that the head's already stripping out. I worked in a blacksmith shop for a while, and even with decent quality air tools, the heads would last like a couple of years, and then they were junk. So those are my cheap Harbor Freight ones like this, but that's not all my Harbor Freight tools. The other one is this. This is sort of their prosumer premium line, their chief. And this is just a long reach cutoff tool. I really like it. It gets into a lot of tight places, and I don't have a plasma cutter. I run it with the diamond cutter tips, but we'll do an episode on abrasives and we'll get into that whole topic at a later date. I've really been happy with this tool. It definitely needs proper lubrication. I think there's some dirt in it, I gotta clean it out, but it still works pretty good, and I've had this for over a year and I've put a lot of hours on it. This is one tool you absolutely should buy from Harbor Freight. It's called a needle scaler. What it does is you got a little hammer inside that hammers these little steel tips, and it takes rust and corrosion off. It's really great on a vehicle like my old Land Rover for finding the spots in the frame where the frame looks to be but actually isn't. These will go right through like thin rusted areas, but on good metal, it'll just clean it off and leave it good. So it's a good thing to go over with. I think it's a little faster than a wire wheel. It's liable to find holes that the wire wheel won't. Because obviously if it's thinner than a 1/16 of an inch on your frame, like you want to know where that spot is because you want to clear it off. So again, this is a tool I've put a lot of time on, and it's really held up. I've used these in a more industrial environment and they seem to hold up well. You do have to oil them, but they can come apart and clean up, and there's almost nothing to these. So, on to the straight cutters. So, I bought this a while back. It's just a cutoff thing from Cobalt. It's like the biggest, clunkiest straight die grinder you ever had with a shield you can't take off, and I've used it a half a dozen times, and it's just a piece of crap. I wouldn't get one like this. There's probably some people that have a particular reason they like this tool. I think it's like a straight die grinder. It's like this, only you're holding this in your hand. So this is also not something I'd recommend. I kind of regretted getting it, but it's not bad. It's just not a very good. It's not a very good idea for a tool, I think. So let me get to one of my pride and joys, Dyna Braids straight grinder. These are quite expensive. I buy mine on eBay. If you shop around, you can find brand new Dyna Braids at around 50% of the cost of retail, which is still like 10 times the cost of the Harbor Freight one, but this is much more powerful than the little Harbor Freight jobby. And you can see the hand size. And that doesn't make a tremendous difference. But if you have to hold it all day and you got something you can hold in 2 fingers and something you got to really, muckle onto, the little 2-finger jobby is going to be better. I also like with the Dyna Braids, they seem to all have the exhaust for the air at the front, whereas a lot of the other tools will have an exhaust at the rear, which you probably can't see, but a lot of them have an exhaust at the rear. For the straight die grinder, the exhaust at the front is great because it blows the chips out of where you're working on, and it doesn't blow back and freeze your hand off. You're certainly not going to be using air tools in 0-degree weather without gloves for very long. But I really like this little guy. I mean, it is probably 4 times the torque of that Harbor Freight one, and it's tiny. So for the right angle die grinders, I had the Harbor Freight one, which I have a wire wheel on it. I just leave it on it, and if I need to clean rust off something quick, I still use it because it still works for now. Then I got a Husky unit, which was like $60-ish. It's okay, but if you notice the clock to the handle's straight up and down, and the clock of it is off at an angle. And that's because every time I'm using it, the head just loosens off of it. And no matter what I do, it won't stay tight. I've tightened it and tightened it and tightened it some more. I've put, thread locker on it. Maybe there's a proper way to do it, but I haven't been able to figure it out. And it's super frustrating when you're die grinding in a tight corner and the head of your tool just walks away from you 150 times. So then you get the Dyna Braid die grinder. This is my most recent Dyna Braid purchase. This was like $350, which seems insane to me saying that, but I know that this tool will last me well. And Dyna Braid plans on it lasting me well as well, because they actually give you, and this is the cutest thing I've ever seen, a little tube of gear oil and a tiny little grease pump so that you can lubricate your tool. And that's probably because they know that if they don't give it to you, you're never using it. And realistically, most users are going to use this once and lose it. This will still last for 20 years. I've used a lot of Dyna Braid in industry, and they just don't die. And then my final right angle is this Dyna Braid, and I know it seems a bit of a duplication of this, but this is just a roll lock type, so it only does the type of abrasives that have a roll lock type fitting. I use this for a lot of things. I like it. It's also handy to have sort of two of the same, because then I can put my Scotch-Brite on here, or my sanding disc, or a bristle disc, clean it off with this, and then if there's something a little bigger, I really like carbide burrs, you go at it with that. So there's a good reason to have two of them, and also this one was a super good deal. So it was less than $200, so I had to get it, right? How could I afford not to? So, on to the next thing. Drills. I picked up this Snap-on brand drill off eBay. It was like $50. Well, if you're buying one of these cheap on eBay, or any of these tools, look out the RPM range. This thing spins at like 60 RPM. It's super slow. It's still great, it has tons of torque. It wasn't very expensive. It was less than $50 shipped to my house. So, considering what this costs new, it's great. I usually just put a wire brush on, is what I've been using it for, because you can really cram it in there and it'll keep spinning it. So overall, I'm happy I got it. I wish that I had gone and looked for one that had a higher RPM. I'd also like to get a right angle drill pretty soon, because it's just good for getting into small spaces. And then finally, the thing that everybody needs, impact guns. These are both 1/2-inch drive. This is one that a friend gave to me. I used it for a while. I cleaned it up. It works pretty good. It hits nice and hard. And then I got this one because AVE said to run out and buy it, and he was right. It's a great tool. And it's super compact. And then for the rest of my impact needs, I have a Milwaukee cordless, but that's not on the menu for today, as it were. So anyways, this is the air tool arsenal. I can't recommend buying good quality tools enough. You don't fight your tools if they're good quality. That's not to say that you shouldn't go out and buy the Harbor Freight if you just got your first compressor and you want to work now. Buy good hoses, buy hose reels, that sort of thing. And that's about it. And that's it for today's Weekly One Shot.